y'all. Welcome back one more again. It's your man, Roderick. And you know what I do on this channel? I bring you that legislation that's very important and legislation that people overlook or don't really do any research into, okay? The bill I'm going to present to you here momentarily is H.R. 582, okay? Raise the Wage Act. It's called the infamous $15 minimum wage bill. We're going to jump into that and break that down. But before we start, I just want to put it out there now. Make sure you like, subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell, and most of all, a lot of content like this on YouTube is being deranked or suppressed. So please do your best, get it out on social media so people can get the word out to understand this legislation and what it's doing to our country, what both the Democrats and the Republicans are doing to our future generations, bankrupting them. As you already know, it's already been a hectic week already. We have already spent $3 trillion this week. $3 trillion this week on just two bills alone, well, three bills alone this week they have passed. $3 trillion right down in the toilet. And this bill coming up is on H.R. 582 is going to pretty much add more to that deficit. How much? We'll get into it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the pieces of legislation here. We have here, as you see, the H.R. 587 Raise the Wage Act, introduced by Robert Scott out of District 3 out of Virginia. And basically, the purview of this, it amends the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938 to increase the federal minimum wage for regular employees over a 7-year period, for tipped employees, and for newly hired employees who are less than 20 years old. This bill also sets forth a schedule of annual increases in the federal minimum wage for individuals with disabilities. The Department of Labor shall no longer issue special certificates for the payment of subminimum wages to such individuals after the final wage increase under this bill for such individuals takes effect. Labor shall provide upon request technical assistance and information to employers. 1. Help them transition their practices to comply with the wage increases and other requirements under this bill for individuals with disabilities. And 2. Ensuring continuing employment opportunities for such individuals. This bill eliminates the separate minimum wage requirements for tipped, newly hired, and disabled employees. After a specific period, these employees shall be paid the same minimum wage as regular employees. Labor must publish any increase in minimum wage in the Federal Register and on its website 60 days before it takes effect. The Government Accountability Office must submit a report to Congress with respect to the Commonwealth of the North Mariana Islands. 1. Assesses the status and structure of the economy of the North Mariana Islands. And 2. For each year in which a wage increase will take effect, estimates the proportion of employees who will be directed effectively by such increases taking effect for that year. So you got the preview of what this bill's about. So let's go ahead. Let's dig into this bill a second here. I'll just let you know there was an amendment to this bill, Amendment 596, and it added in the breakdown of how that minimum wage is going to work, as you see here from the House report. 116-155 to require the GAO, in consultation with specific experts, to submit a report to Congress on the economic and employment impacts nationally, regionally, and locally for the 4 minimum wage increases. All right, that's basically what it does. They have to establish a report on the breakdown of each wage increase and how it is affecting the economy on all three geographical levels. So before we get into the bill itself, all right, you can see here how many yays, how many nays to the bill. It wasn't down party lines, which was quite interesting. A few people flipped back and forth. on this, but you can see, if you can see that quick enough, all of the people that are in italics are Republicans. Anybody underlined, like Justin Amash, is underlined in here. So you can see is mainly a lot of Democrat support. There's a few Republicans that's in here, like Smith out of New Jersey, Fitzpatrick, another Republican. But for the most part, obviously, all the Republicans voted against it. Justin Amash, the independent, voted against it. And there was a few Democrats that voted against it, like Ben McAdams from here in my home state of Utah. He voted against it. Torres Small voted against it. Who else voted against it? There were 6 Democrats that said no on this bill. It's kind of hard to see. Schrader is another one. But yeah, you can check. You can look through this and see who voted against. 3 people didn't vote. Tulsi Gabbard, one of the well-known Democrats in the House, she didn't vote at all on this bill. So so there you have it. You can see who voted, how, down party lines, if not, etc. You can look that up yourself also. It's very easy to find. So let's go ahead. Let's get into the bill. H.R.582. I'm not going to read the whole thing like I normally do because it's about 19 pages, but I'm going to highlight some parts of this for you so you understand basically the general breakdown of what this bill is going to do. So we start here in Section 2 of this here, the minimum wage increases. In general, Section 6A1 of the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938 is amended to read as follows. Except as otherwise provided in this section, not less than $8.40 an hour beginning on the effective date under Section 7 of the Raise the Wage Act. And we'll get to Section 7 here in a little bit. $9.50 an hour beginning 1 year after such effective date, $10.60 an hour beginning 2 years after, $11.70 beginning 3 years after, $12.80 an hour beginning 4 years after, $13.90 5 years after, and $15 an hour at the 6-year mark. Beginning on the date that is 7 years after such effective date and annually thereafter, the amount determined by the Secretary under subsection H. Okay. So this is all fluff for the most part. Section 3 of this, tipped employees. Base minimum wage for tipped employees and tip retained by employees. Section 3M2AI of the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938 is amended to read as follows. The cash wage paid such employee which for purposes of such determination shall be not less than for 1 year period beginning on the effective date under Section 7 of the Raise the Wage Act, $3.60 an hour. For each succeeding 1 year period until the hourly wage under this clause equals the wage in effect under Section 6 for such period. An hourly wage equal to the amount determined under this clause for the preceding year increased by the lesser of $1.50 or the amount necessary for the wage in effect under this clause to equal the wage in effect under Section 6A1 for such period rounded up to the nearest multiple of a nickel. And for each succeeding 1 year period after the increase made pursuant to subclause 2, the minimum wage in effect under Section 6A1 and they cut that off. That's interesting. All right, and we're talking about the tips retained by employees, right? And they're going to obviously amend it. You can see that in the second sentence of the matter following clause 2I, by striking of this subsection and all tips received by such employees have been retained by the employee, inserting all of this subsection, any employee shall have the right to retain any tips received by such employee, and by adding at the end of the following, an employer shall inform each employee of the right and exception provided under the preceding sentence. Scheduled repeal of separate minimum wage for tipped employees. For tipped employees, they're going to amend the subsection A and B. is further amended by striking a sentence beginning with, in determining the wage, an employer is required to pay a tipped employee, and all that follows of this subsection, and inserting the wage required to be paid to a tipped employee shall be the wage set forth in section 6A1. All right, so let's go down here to section 7 so you understand what we're talking about. Section 7. Oh, wait, let me get the, I forgot about number 6. I'm sorry. Section 6. Promoting economic self-sufficiency for individuals with disabilities. The transition of fair wages for individuals with disabilities, subparagraph A of section 14, C1 of the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938 is amended to read as follows. At a rate that equals or exceeds for each year the greater of $4.25 an hour beginning 1 year after the date the wage rate specified in section 6A takes effect. Then it's $6.40 an hour beginning 2 years after the date, $8.50 3 years after, $10.70 4 years after, and $12.85 5 years after. The wage rate in effect under subsection 6 on this date is that 6 years after the date the wage specified in section 6 takes effect. All right. Now let's go down here. Let's find section 7. Let's explain section 7 to you. Right there. Okay. So section 7 is basically the effective date, right? It says, except as otherwise provided by this act. Let's highlight it for you here so you can actually see it a little bit better here. All right. Except as otherwise provided in this act or the amendments made by this act and the amendments made by this act shall take effect subject to paragraph 2 on the first day of the third month that begins after the date of the enactment of this act with respect to the Commonwealth of the North Mariana Islands on the date that is 18 months after the effective date prescribed in paragraph 1. Section 8 just talked about that one clause I was talking about the North Mariana Islands has to, there's got to be a report done to see the economic impact on them, which I find interesting because they're not doing that for Puerto Rico. They're not doing that for Guam. They're not doing that for the Marshalls. They're not doing that for the Virgin Islands. So this is interesting, and I'll have to dig more into it and find out, or call a couple of senators or House reps and see why the other U.S. territories was left out of this deal. All right, so that's basically the bill. Now, y'all have heard me say before that this bill is going to be a disaster for local economies, right? Because you can raise the wage to compensate in certain areas of the country, but I think about the poorer states in the union, like the West Virginias and the Alabamas, right? States like that can afford to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. But on the adverse side, right? If you keep them spiked too low, then it affects the cities, right? This is why I've always said that the states have not the states, but the federal government has no business doing this, period. The federal government does not need to be dictating anything that's going on in the individual 50 sovereign states, because each state's economy is different. You can't just paint it all with a broad brush. Everybody's going to be better. Well, what about the businesses that'll end up going automated, like places like Walmart that's already going automated, right? Targets are going automated. Your local grocery stores, most of them are going automated, right? Because they can't afford to pay these people $15 an hour if their overhead is just not going to compensate for it. And the federal government is not going to come in and be a captain save a fill in the blank, right? To save these businesses. These businesses will just sink. Now, you want to talk about unemployment going to a higher level. I mean, you're looking at it, right? You're looking at exactly. I mean, you can just imagine it in your head, right? I mean, Walmart has one attendant for, what is that, like those 9 little self-checkout kiosks there in the front? The whole front end of Walmart, all like 20 lanes in your Walmarts, even though I don't shop at Walmart um, or any really major department stores anyway. But they'll be all kiosk, and you'll have 4 people manning the kiosk, right? People have to check it on their own, right? People, and from a culture standpoint, right? People are going to miss this because they're used to knowing their cashiers, knowing their grocer, right? Um, and it's just not, you're going to lose that personal aspect of neighborhood neighborhood customer service, because most people, if you go to your local grocery store in your neighborhood, you pretty much know the kid that's ringing you out because they're from the community, they're from the neighborhood, right? You lose that, then your community start becoming more disconnected from each other. So I mean, this raise the wage is not going to have some major economic impacts, but it's going to have some cultural impacts also, right? I mean, it's gonna further unemployment, right? Um, you know, yeah. There's jobs out here right now. Granted, there's gonna be, who's gonna say there's gonna be jobs in 7 years, and you have all these people competing for a job, and if there is no job, then guess what happens, right? That that line of progression now, quote unquote, government thinks they have to step in and fix the situation they broke, right? They want to step in and fix the situation they broke, and they want to call that democratic socialism, right? See where we're going? They're leading us by the tail down the line. So we have so many people unemployed, the government has to step in and do something. Well, here comes what? UBI, right? Universal Basic Income. If you don't know about that, just search UBI and read up about it. It's not good concept, handing away money, but still, right? Um, we have to think about the ramifications of things like this when you start playing with the economy as it is, and what the local impact's going to be. The federal, as a whole, the Fed is not going to see it. It's going to be the individual localities, your municipalities that you live in, that's going to really hurt with this bill if the Senate passes it. All right. I'm going to show you something interesting too. Um, this is the CBO report for this, right? And um, they're looking at the first 5 years. You see it right here. This is written in millions, right? The first 5 years, there's going to be $9 million in discretionary spending on this. Look what happens for the latter. I can't even highlight it, but you can see what I'm looking at here. Look what happens the latter 10 years. $76 million. Another hit. Another hit to our budget, and you're looking at it right here. This is the stuff we need to pay attention to, and call out our representatives and senators for this, because they're the ones passing this, but don't have to live with this. They want to make us broke to crash the economy, to reconstruct it the way they want to. How disgusting is that? I mean, truthfully, how disgusting is that? I mean, it's completely ludicrous at this point. Basically 77. Well, I should say, yeah, close to $77 million for this. All right. And the other thing I didn't mention about this bill, okay, is the increased spending is subject to appropriation by increasing the wage of some of the federal workers, right? So that's going to have an impact. The off budget direct spending by increasing the wages of some of the postal workers is going to be affected by this bill. Okay, and the imposition of intergovernmental and private sector mandates by requiring employers, all right, to pay a higher minimum wage to employees who are covered under the Fair Labor Standards Act, right? So this is where we're getting that outlay from, right? As you've seen on the screen before. I'll pull it back up for you so you can get it. This is that outlay, right? That is subject to the appropriation I was just mentioning a second ago. Um, Again, Democrats and Republicans, they're trying to sink us, little one. They're trying to sink us. Every chance they get, they're trying to sink us. More taxes, more this, more that, this, that, and a third. But let me tell you, we need to stand up to these tyrants that we have elected into office to do our bidding. We need to stand up to them every chance we get. I don't care if it's an email to your House rep or your senator. I don't care if it's a phone call. Do something. Don't sit around on your hands and knees and everything's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay until we, the people, start stepping up and saying something to these people and put these people in check. The best check and balance we have per the Constitution is us. If they ain't doing right, we need to make sure they get in line right. If not, sayonara. I know some places that's tough to do because it's like a stronghold. But we still shouldn't sit around and just watch. Oh, nobody's listening. No, you'd be surprised how many of these people listen to their constituents. It's actually refreshing to hear. Some of the senators and the House reps say that. I know mine say it all the time. That they're glad to hear from the people here. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, as long as you're not nasty to these people, they will listen to what you got to say and take it into consideration. That's honest. I've called my senator, both of my senators before. I've called my House rep, previously Mia Love, now Ben McAdams. I have called them and expressed my concerns about certain bills or certain issues that's going on, and they've taken it under consideration. And that's what we all have to do, because if they know that people are watching, right? If they know that people are watching and calling them, then that holds them accountable consciously. And they know if the will of the people is overwhelmingly and they go against it, they know their seats at stake. So we got to make sure we make these people listen to us. We have to. We really don't have a choice. Because if not, our republic is done. Everything we fought for, clawed for, to save this nation is all for naught if we don't get back politically engaged and looking at these issues. I mean, if you're okay with them spending $76 million to compensate for the raise in the minimum wage, that's on you. Do you have $76 million just to throw away because they want to make everybody feel good? I mean, think about that little one. Think about it real quick. I know I ain't got it. No, I ain't got it. Neither do you. Or we wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't be looking into this camera. And you wouldn't be looking at me through this camera. So please, 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 please do me a favor. Get active. If you have a problem finding out who your House representative is, their email, etc., you can just message me. Drop it in the comments down there. Hey, I'll help you out. Or you can get the number to the Capitol switchboard and they'll transfer you to your House rep if you want to talk to them on the phone. But there's plenty of methods that we can hold these people accountable for this. Go to your town halls when they advertise, hey, I'm having a town hall this here and the third. Go to those town halls when they announce. You might be tired getting off from work, whatever, or, it might be in the middle of the day. Hey, take your lunch break and go down there. It's that important. It is that important to take 30 minutes of your lunch break to go down to a town hall, listen to what your rep is talking about, and just answer a couple questions, go back home. That is way more important than sitting on your ass during lunch and eating a sandwich. Just putting it in perspective for you. So remember, you need to comment, like, rate, share this video. You think this video has viable information? Please, 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 please share it on all your social media. Let's get the word out there on how our government is literally raping us every time we turn around. So until next time, God bless you. God bless your family. And most of all, God bless these United States of America.